What is up, YouTube, and welcome to episode 58 of the Chaos Daily. We are not in the office today. No, we're in the workshop. The printer is turned off, so you can hear me, because when that thing's going, it's loud. And I don't care, because it's awesome. So, anyways, we are going to talk about what I've learned so far with the Albatross. We're going to go over some of the things that have happened, and where we're going to go next. What are the next steps? How do we fix some of these issues that I've discovered? I've gone through and marked a whole bunch of stuff on these parts, so that we can see more clearly what is going on and what needs to be changed. I've already started working in CAD on some of those changes, and this is going to just be an update for you guys. So let's go back a step. The old school. This was one of the first tail sections I printed. This was much heavier, but something I realized, there was a difference between this gray and this white. Both of these still have the same ratio of fast and blue. So fast is their generic cheap resin, which is very good quality. It's amazing to work with, there's very little smell, and it's easy to handle. It's not very sticky or messy, it's great stuff. Blue is their hardener. I've talked about this before. You stick a little bit of blue in with their fast, and it starts changing. It starts changing from being an awesome resin to an incredible resin. Blue makes everything tougher, stronger, a little bit more brittle, but gives it a lot more tensile strength. And then we've got tenacious. Tenacious is like chewing gum. Think of it like rubber. You add tenacious, it allows your parts to have more flex, more bend before they start breaking. So these in combinations in different ratios will give you different results. So the results I'm looking for, I was getting just with the fast gray and the blue, but obviously there was some design changes I need to make, so I needed to reprint. I also made loads of design changes to the fuselage, and I thought, okay, now we've made the major design changes. Let's switch to the fast white resin, because it looks amazing. This mixed with the blue, you get this beautiful pale green peppermint color. I love it. I really do love this color. But there is a dark side, and I'm going to have a chat with Siriya about it, because something I've noticed about the fast white resin, especially when you mix it with blue, I think the fast white, the white part of it, the pigment, is actually in suspension. It's not part of the resin itself, and because it's white, it's not like an ink. It's not a liquid, it is an actual particle. And when the part has been printing for, 10, 15, 20 hours, that white particle starts to fall and settle out on the print bed. And it's only where you're getting a layer that is lifting up and resin is flowing back in to fill that gap, that you're pulling in a little bit of that particle. And the ratio of particle to resin and the distribution, when you mix this stuff up to pour in there and when you print it, it's a beautiful color like this. At the end of the print, and you go and you mix up your tank, all of that white particle is sitting on the bottom like a white carpet. I really do think that's what's causing this effect of the warping and the print failure in some places. Printing very vertical parts. The area that is exposed on the print bed isn't changing much as it goes through the layers, except for these where I was printing from down here and it's getting wider and wider and wider. Now it's already been printing for quite a while by the time it gets to here. And this is when it starts exposing that now carpet of white that is sitting elsewhere. So when it goes to expose that next part, the next layer that is wider out, it is exposing that white carpet and not the resin. And I think that's what's causing this effect. We're not getting proper exposure to the layers as it's just because that particle is getting in the way. I never got this issue with the gray. I do believe the gray is just a clear resin with a type of ink or something. Again, I will have to talk with Siriya and ask them some questions about this because for what I'm doing, printing these parts, that particle settling out on the vat, that's causing some big issues. So I can't be using this anymore. So, and if you hadn't noticed, this is the tail section. It's broken. Yeah. I kind of dropped the plane when I was hanging it up there in the other room on the new wall mount, and the whole plane fell on the tail section and it broke. So it was quite a bit of, and it wasn't just a little fall. It dropped from like up here on the wall all the way to the floor. A good meter's drop. So yeah. I was looking to make some design changes to this anyways. It was a bit heavy, so probably a good thing. But anyways, as I said, with the white resin being an issue, I'm going to have to switch back to the gray. So now the tail section, the diagonal stabilizers and the ruddervators, I want to make some changes there. I want to increase the rib spacing on here, but I want to do some tests first with the gray again just to make sure that if I go with the gray, will that cancel out the effect of that white settling out in the vat and prevent this sort of warping that I'm getting. But the warping is actually more of an issue to do with the alcohol. When I cured a part without putting it in the alcohol, the amount of warping I got was far less. Because I cured it without cleaning it, it's a little bit heavier and some parts of it are a little bit gummy, and as you can see on the inside, the large sections of the inside just cured with all that excess resin. Yeah, not ideal, but I have worked around that since then with these parts in the way that I do the washing, and I think especially with the amount of holes that I put in it to allow the alcohol to flow through clearly instead of building up in places, and then after washing it, making sure I dry it for ages, like literally sitting it out for ages before I even put it near a UV light. I think the combination of the alcohol and the UV light causes the resin to sort of shrink and expand. Through the process of the alcohol drying off. It causes temperature differentials on the surface while the resin is trying to cure and increase its temperature. It's sucking the heat out of the resin from the evaporation, and it causes some weird warping. And I think that's what's caused it, and I think I've solved it, because if we look at these new parts, I let these dry for at least a day before I cured them, and there's far less warping. The surfaces are much cleaner, much smoother. Even in sections where we had holes and stuff, there's no warping in those sections. It was only here where the internal structure had collapsed and the actual structure itself was already warped from it collapsing from insufficient structure, that we have that warping issue. So I think I've solved that. So going on from there, we're going to make changes to the tail section. We're going to make changes to the tail section core. This is the CAD for this has already been redone, and this is going to be the part we're going to print again. This is the wing root. It is on the USB stick and ready to go. So I also wanted to mention the tenacious, these second sections of the wing. I added 10% tenacious to the mix, and clearly there is a big difference in the flexibility of the part. It's a lot more forgiving, and I especially think this is part of the reason why this collapsed during the print is the curing process. Like I said, it's mostly structure, but I think the addition of that tenacious to it allowed that structure to have a bit more flex. It was too flexible to begin with because of the structure, but it exasperated the problem. So I will be changing this structure pattern because it's not good enough. So because this had 10% tenacious mixed in with it, and I'm liking the results, I'm not going to go full 10%. I'm probably going to knock that up back to about 8%. So we'll be using 8% tenacious. We're going to be switching from the white and we're going to be going to the gray, and I will be using the last of my blue. The last, I think there's about 250 mils in there. So nice and simple. Get this zeroed out. There we go. So let's start off with the blue. I want to use the last of the blue that I've got in here. Let's let that sit for a minute and pour out. Ooh, this is going to be a light batch. 130, come on, 140. All right, while that's settling down and out so we can pour it out, I'm just going to mix up some of this fast gray and get that ready for pour. All right, 150, we'll call it 150. So that means I need 450 grams of fast gray, but we want to subtract, if we go 10%, so we'll say 40 grams of tenacious to get the 8%, because 10% would be 45. So just quickly mix up 40, there we go. Wipe that dribble before we put the cap back on. There we go, and the fast gray. So we want to take this now, we want 300. So if we zero that out, just to make it easier for ourselves, there we go. There we go. So that's how I mix it up, just by weight. Now the specific gravities of these liquids is different. So if I did it by, if I said it was a certain percentage by volume, by milliliters, then you would have different ratios, because the specific gravity of fast and the specific gravity of tenacious or blue is different. So that's why it's important that I mention I do these measurements by weight and not by volume. So now I've already reset the printer. By reset, I mean I've gone through, I've cleaned the vat, I've cleaned the build plate, I've cleaned everything. I've got it reset basically ready for a fresh print. I don't do this for every print. If there's still resin in the vat, I just clean the build plate and go on to the next print. Because I'm switching out to this new formula, I wanted to have a nice clean reset environment so that I can be sure that the results that I'm getting with these new prints is verified and not contaminated by any previous elements left in the vat. So just give this a mix up. It doesn't really take much. It's already mixed in the bottles, so we're just mixing the blue and the gray and the tenacious. It'll mix better when we pour it, so we just want to get the majority of it mixed up. Let that sit. Go into Tools, Manual, click Home. We'll grab that jug out before it gets close. So there we go, it is homed. It is ready for print. Let's go find the file. And there it goes. So yeah, hopefully that explains some of the processes I've gone through in order to diagnose some of the problems I've been seeing and how I'm moving forward to change the setup or the CAD or whatever it is to get better results. So make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you're not, it really does help. Go check out my Patreon if you can. And as always, I've been Chaos. And until next time, expect the unexpected. And I will see you guys later.
And a special thank you to all my patrons that help support the channel. If you would also like to support the channel, there's a link in the description.